All right. We are here. Welcome back, guys. This is my first time doing a live podcast recording, so I'm super excited, and I'm definitely excited because I have two of the best high school counselors slash college and career professional experts that I know joining today. So I will let them introduce themselves because they need no introductions.
All right, I'll start. My name is Miss Tuwanda Jackson, CEO and founder of The Cultured You, a college and career consulting educational program, as well as a college and career counselor at a local Washington, D.C. public chartered high school.
Hi, and good evening. I am Kiristin Tunstell, a school counselor at a local DCPS high school as well.
All right, so today, guys, we are just going to give out some free information for all of my parents who have high school students, especially juniors and seniors. You definitely won't want to miss this. If you're not on the live, which is fine, we will post it later on YouTube tomorrow for a playback. So you'll be able to go back and get down information, write your whatever notes you need to write. And I'll also post it on all platforms, of course. So make sure you get this information. So we'll just start and get rolling because the college process is, from what I remember, very stressful. For the two times that I went for my bachelor's and my master's, I know that financial aid process is always like cringeworthy, trying to figure out how much money they're going to give you, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll just start with some basic questions of like, what should parents be doing to get prepared for this senior year process? Like, what are the steps? What should they be doing?
So you want to go or you want me to go?
Go ahead, you can start.
Okay. So I guess the biggest thing is that making sure that their scholar has either completed the FAFSA, which opened up on October 1st, and making sure that the student knows their social security number. I've had several instances where a student has put in the wrong social security number, thought it was theirs, and missed it by a number, which can delay the process. But making sure that the student knows their social security number and that the parent has also filed their taxes. That is something that the student will actually need to have for the parent to actually go through and complete their FAFSA information as well too.
Yes,
Okay.
I would also piggyback off of that. The FAFSA is extremely important. Parents would need to use the taxes that are filed from the previous year. So it's actually called FAFSA prior taxes. Making sure that those are completed, making sure that your social security number and your name matches your social security number. Because I have run into that. Sometimes there's students that have two last names, hyphenated last names. They have a middle initial or a middle name, and that's on their social security card. What people don't realize is that this is a federal document that you are completing. Therefore, everything needs to be accurate. And again, it can delay the process. Another important thing is knowing pretty much where you would like to attend, like knowing the regions. You need to know, do you want to go to a big school, a small school? You need to have some type of plan of where you want to apply. Knowing the deadlines, those are important as well, and any other fees that are associated with that.
Okay. So, when do you feel like people should really get started for the college process? Like, it's ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, but like, when should you really get serious and buckle down to prepare for, your last year of high school?
Statistics has shown that you should be prepared or learning about college at the start of kindergarten. Now, what does
Mhm.
that look like in kindergarten? That looks like having lunch tables named after specific colleges, learning different facts about them, maybe showing pictures of them, because at the end of the day, they need to have something to identify with for the long term. In terms of what exactly they need to have, they really should just have an idea of what their interests are, an idea of what their interests are for their majors, as well as where they would like to attend.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. I agree with what Miss Jackson said as well too. Just the earlier the better. Even if it's not being introduced at school, try to introduce it at home. Like she said, just naming things or whatever that may look like, or if you have family members who have attended, like what does that look like? Wearing all types of college paraphernalia around them, so that way they are able to realize and understand like this is what it is.
Okay.
Yes.
So what do you think for like a first generation parent? Because my page is geared toward moms and especially like single moms. And what would a single parent need to get prepared for, or just parents in general, that may be their child may be like first generation, so they have never gone through the financial aid process. They did either a trade, or they may be entrepreneurs. What resources are out there, or what should they be doing to kind of make sure that they stay on top of their student or scholar?
So I would say one would be this podcast, which is offering all this type of information as well too. But any type of free sessions that your schools, I mean, excuse me, that your scholar school may be doing. I know being in DC, there are so many different sessions for parents to be able to join in. So whenever you see that, even if it's just popping in to understand what does that look like, I think that is one way as well too.
Yes. I would also say that getting your student involved in a college access program like Upward Bound is extremely helpful. I was a first time generation student, and I was the first in my family to attend college and then go on to graduate school and complete my graduate studies. And my parents didn't do any of that, like at all. They didn't know anything. I also didn't know anything, which is what brought me into this role because of the scholarship piece. I did not have enough money for me to go to the school that I attended. And, ultimately I had to take out loans. And so that's what motivates me to continue to spread the word about going to college and about knowing the right direction to head with or without your parents, because we do have those students that are self-starters and they're asking questions and they're like leaving their parents behind because they're like, I don't have time to catch up with them. One
Mhm.
of the things I will say is parents, 12th grade, like I know that's when you think like, oh, that's when we're going to get ready. You really should be preparing for like ninth or 10th grade. Honestly, you should be preparing like around that time, because doing during 12th grade year, you have your student taking AP classes or they're taking the SAT, they're practicing for that on top of doing all of this work, maybe dual enrollment courses, and then they're trying to navigate their college access process as well as the financial aid process, and then they have to explain to you what they need from you, and then you're trying to double back and check with the counselor or the teacher to try to understand and trying to get caught up. It can happen, you can get caught up to learn these things, but I would strongly recommend that if they're offering it in ninth and 10th grade year of your scholars high school years, you should definitely attend those resources. OSSI provides a lot of things. College Success Foundation provides a lot of things. Upward Bound. It's so many different resources, not just necessarily in Washington D.C., but nationally as well.
Okay, cool. So what I want to know is, what do you feel like is the biggest, I would say the biggest barrier for your 12th grade students, um, when they start doing the college application process?
So for me, a lot of my students, they are unsure as far as what they want to do. They know they want to go to college, but they're not sure as to what they want to do when they go there, or some of them just don't want to go to college at all, which is okay. Like there are so many other things in regards to trade, um, different things that they can do outside of going to college. And I've noticed that that is the biggest barrier for them. And then another one is that they just can't afford to pay for it. So having them apply to scholarships or putting that information in front of them, I think for them, it's all about exposure. And the more that you expose them to different things, there are different pathways or just different options that they have to still be successful after high school.
Okay.
I think the biggest hindrance is the lack of research, lack of college research. We grew up in a time where we would see some of the exposure like on TV. I can really just relate to myself. I can only speak for myself. I'm watching TV, I'm watching a different world. I'm watching all
Mhm.
these 90s black sitcoms, and they're always wearing college paraphernalia. And I just knew that I was going to go to college. Now, did I know I was going to go to a HBCU? No, but I knew I was going to college based off of what I was watching on TV. And I just feel that they say, "Oh, I want to go to Johns Hopkins," because they've seen it on TV or they've seen it somewhere else. And then I'm like, "Did you do the research? Do you fit the academic profile for them?" And they do not do the research.
Mhm.
So my problem, not problem, my concern is when I have to have those real conversations with them, because some of them are well qualified, to compete for that application for that spot, and some of them are not, unfortunately. But they just think like, oh, I can apply to this college, and then they're going to accept me, or I think they're going to accept me, but you're not in any way competitive compared to some of these other students, whether they are at a Benjamin Banneker in Washington, D.C., or a Woodrow Wilson Senior High School, or Sidwell and Friends. Like you're competing with not just the top of the top in Washington, D.C., but the top of the top all across the United States. And I think that it has to be a more clearer view for them. And so I do a lot of activities on college fit, which is academic fit, social fit, and financial fit. And they don't notice that until they do that activity, like, oh, I don't qualify for this, but
Mhm.
if you want to get to those schools, let's talk about how you can get there. You don't have to get there your freshman year. You can get there and transfer after, first year or second year. So I think the issue or concern that I have is the lack of research, because they just hear these names like, I'm going to Hampton, I'm going to Howard, and then they're not willing to do these essays either, because some of these schools have like 5 essays. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're doing too much. And I'm like, you're not doing too much to get money and get accepted into a college.
That part.
Right.
That part. And you know what? I want to piggyback on something you said, Miss Jackson. When you talked about competing with people all over the United States. But let's talk about the foreign exchange students that they look for,
Mhm.
which is a big thing right now because every country is competing to be the first at something in IA, which is AI, which is artificial intelligence or scientific. And we know that some other countries are light years ahead of the United States when it comes to resources for science and tech. So I want you guys, when you listen to this with your parents, because you didn't jump on here now, which is fine, but when you listen with your mama and your daddy or your auntie, and especially some of y'all that are living with your grandparents or not in a traditional home setting where somebody in the family type of kinship situation, make sure that you understand it's not just kids in the United States, but also they are looking for the best of the best, especially in these competitive programs. Everybody wants to be an engineer, but you have to know how to do something. If you haven't done a project, you haven't created anything, you didn't stay after school to be in the STEM club, you haven't never built a robot, you're
Mhm.
at the bottom of the list because there are kids who are building things as early as 8 and 9. Like we see it all the time. Y'all are on Instagram, you see it like, oh, this student rebuilt a replica something out of soda bottles, like those types of things that they think is corny or they just don't have the time for. Other kids understand like this is my key to generational wealth or a what can you say, like a comfortable lifestyle. So I just wanted to make sure that we kind of really honed in on that part. And then the secondly, like, yes, like making sure you understand, yes, Howard sounds great and it's down the street. And I feel like sometimes they feel like because it's in their hometown that it's so attainable, but it's really competitive.
Very.
Like just because it's down the street and you pass it all the time and you might hang out down there, that doesn't mean you're gonna cross a threshold into a classroom. You go to the game. But that's gonna be as good as it's gonna get if you haven't prepared. So that's just one of my like pet peeves is like the lack of preparation.
Mhm.
What can you say for parents who may not be in the space to fund college? Um through their normal 9 to 5, like what are some things that they could do early on, even before high school, to kind of try to set some money aside or set their child up for success as far as not having to have that student loan? Because we're gonna get into student loans a little bit later, but that burden is real.
I don't even want to talk about it. but for students, I mean, for parents who are, pretty much stretched thin with their finances, um, I don't know if you see these memes that come around like the first of the year, and it's like you put $14 in your bank in a bank account every week, and you double it and you double it, and like by the end of the year, you should have like $3,600 or something like
Hmm.
that. That's
Hmm.
another way to do that. Also, depending on like where the parent works, where the parent lives, if it's like affordable housing, they have scholarship programs. Most of the job employers, they have scholarship programs that their child can apply to if
Hmm.
they are, if they're working there, or if they have kids, or if their parents work there. And there's other resources. Like I can really speak to DC because DC has a lot of resources, but everywhere there's resources. You just have to find them.
Hmm.
Then there's students with special needs. They receive about $6,000 to $8,000 if they complete a very long paperwork process for their scholarship. But they're out there. The resources are out there. You just have to pay attention, just call around. And to be honest, that's just a small feat based off of what you can like really get out of that.
Hmm.
I would have to say just for them to be patient with themselves as well too. Like Ms. Jackson said, there's a lot of resources out here, and a lot of times it can get frustrating trying to get in contact with somebody, or you have this paper, but someone tells you you need this additional paper. Like, yeah, it's a lot, but in the end, it's going to be worth it. So I think just keep going, just keep
Yeah.
pressing through.
And
Yeah, and I definitely want people to realize that, especially on the HBCU side. I can't speak to PWIs because I didn't go to one. I had no desire to go to one. But a lot of the alumni associations for HBCUs have their own scholarships, which sometimes I know mine's. I went to South Carolina State for undergrad, and they provided for like DMV residents or local people, they covered your out of state expenses. So I went to South Carolina State on the cost of an in state student because I qualified for the scholarship. So that helped me out tremendously because the fees, once you add that out of state fee and housing, it was almost up to like 17,000 back in like the early 2000s, which was a lot back then. I can't even imagine what it is now. But so just making sure, like you guys said, researching, looking up stuff. The Divine Nine usually has a scholarship. Most of those sororities and fraternities do scholarships.
yeah,
So definitely making sure you tap into everything and using the resources in your building. Like I just don't understand how people could go to a school for 4 years and not know that, oh, Mr. So and so went to Bowie or Mr. So and so went to Hampton. They probably have a connect. Like sometimes it's really not what you know, it's who you know, because
mhm,
a lot of people make it off of knowing somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who could sign some papers.
yep, that's
It's just the real deal. Like I'm not even going to sugarcoat that part. Like a lot of people get stuck because their mama knew somebody who knew somebody.
Right.
Is it right? Probably not. But if it works for you, then do it.
No, I agree.
yes, definitely.
So I think I want to talk about a lot of the fear because I hear a lot of some of my students talk about, I'm not going because I don't want student loans. Like I feel like we need to like break down the fear on student loans because I feel like student loans are helpful if we do them in the way that we should do them, right? Like when you're paying on them as you go versus just letting them accumulate or paying the interest how they offer that to you when you're in school, it does change the way it ends out for you at the end. And then you may only need a student loan for the first year and then you can apply for something in the second year. So can we talk about options after you get in the door? Because I think sometimes they get afraid and they never actually get in the door, but there's so many other alternatives once you get in the door.
So I'll start. Once you get in the door, I, for me, one thing I would say is that I actually use some of my refund check that I got back to start paying on my loans for grad school. In undergrad, I didn't do that, which is the reason why I do have so much in student loans now. But am I thankful for where I am because of the student loans? Yes, because honestly, I would not have been able to afford to go to college. I was a first gen college student as well. My mother didn't know anything. My dad, like no one went to college at all. So I was just fortunate enough to be able to do that. But again, like you mentioned, make sure you connect with people. It's not all about what you know, but who you know. And you can always get extra money. Sometimes scholarship money can offset the cost of what you have within your loans. And if you don't need all of that money, use that to pay back what you can.
Yes, yes. So I would agree. Just doing scholarships, like just do as many scholarships as possible. I was that child that did not do any scholarships. I did one scholarship and I got it, but it was like $2,500, and that's not even a dent for
Right.
a private HBCU at all. But I did get some scholarships that were awarded to me through merit from Hampton, and I still needed to take out a loan. And so if you have to take out a loan, let me also say this, loans are not necessarily a bad thing. But if you absolutely positively have to take out a loan, take out a federal loan. Do not take out a private loan. Take out the loan that they are offering on the financial aid package, which would be like a subsidized loan or an unsubsidized loan. Subsidized loan is $2,000 for the year, and basically they lock your interest rate when you come in, and then 6 months after you graduate is when your interest rates will start to accrue. And so, actually, I'm sorry, after you graduate, your interest rate will accrue, and you have 6 months after you graduate to start paying on it.
Mhm.
So at that point, it's not that much money that you have to pay back. And then the unsubsidized loan is 3,500, and that one the interest rate continues to accrue while you're in college, so like you might end up owing 6,000 instead of 3,500. It's not necessarily a bad thing either, because they're federal loans, and to be honest, federal loans are a little bit easier to defer. They're a little bit easier, like flexible for you in making payment. Private loans, they're like, we want our money right now, and Navient, stop calling me. You get 200 a month and that's it. Um, they're not as flexible as the federal loan,
Right.
you know.
No.
So if you have to if you really want to go to the school and you have to take out that loan, let it be for that 1 year and just work your butt off in college to get more merit scholarships. And like ask if you already know what you want to do for college or like major, ask that department, do they have any extra funds?
Mhm.
I think a lot of people are saying like, "Oh, this is what they gave me," but I'm looking at their expected family contribution from their FAFSA, and then I'm looking at like how they get a Pell Grant, and if they get a Pell Grant, why don't they have work study?
Right.
Ask for work study. I had the Pell Grant every year, and then like my fourth year, my senior year, I was like, "Why I never got work study?" So I just went up to him. I said, "Why don't I ever have work study?" And he was like, "Oh, do, 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 do." And then I had work study because it's just that easy because people are not asking for it. Ask if
Mhm.
they have the federal student education opportunity grant. That's 2,000 to maybe $4,000 depending on the school. Some schools have done away with it, but that's still money. If you have a Pell Grant, then you're eligible for that federal grant as well. A lot of people do not know that. They just like, oh, they're just giving me one grant. And then you have state grants. So you have DC Tag, you have Virginia Tag.
Mhm.
Maryland is like Maryland Higher Education something. I can't
Yeah.
remember. But you have state aid as well. So just making sure that you are tapping into those resources so that you're able to try to fund your lifestyle. And let's not forget, we got these local churches as well. We didn't talk about that. Local churches, and some of you don't even have to be a member of these churches to get scholarships at all.
Mhm. Yeah, and then there's also like community service scholarships, and so for all those kids who are like, I'm gonna do my 100 and that's it. Well, the kids that did 500 and 1,000, they got broke off with a little bit of money, or if it wasn't money, they got their laptop and their books paid for. And it's nothing worse than getting exactly what you need in financial aid, and then you can't buy your books, and you trying to borrow a book, or you trying to get the pages offline. You got the copy before the copy that the teacher is using now, because I don't know, they remind me of the doctors who get like quotas for the new prescriptions. if they use the new textbook, are you getting a bonus? Like, why are you going to the new edition?
Yeah.
And when they only change the cover, they didn't change any of the information. The cover is just new. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. So, just making sure that you're asking questions. I want to challenge the parents because, it wouldn't be me if I didn't get on parents about not preparing for your kids. Like, it's not okay to be like, well, they got to figure it out. No, if your expectation is, and I'm only speaking for the people that have this expectation of when you turn 18, you getting a job, you going to the military, or you got to go to college. Did you put any money for that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one wants to talk about that taboo question, but it's a lot to say to somebody, you better go to school if you not signing out nothing. You're not going to sign for half of the loan. You're not going to give them 10,000. So let's be realistic about where we are for the parents. Like, I know you probably cringing, rolling your eyes and all that, and that's all well and fine. However, let's just keep it all the way real. Like, if you put your child in a situation where they gonna have to come back to your house, you lost anyway. Because if they can't pay that loan and live and survive, because we all know what the work situation is looking like right now, and the pandemic has definitely showed us where we are as far as a bit, opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
We gonna have to keep it real about the reality of your child could go for 4 years and not break into their field for another 4 or 5
Right.
after graduation. So what does that look like? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. What are y'all thoughts on that? Like, when you have parents come in your office, I know you guys have like parents come and do fast for, like, what kind of conversations are you having with them about what are you prepared to do? Because this is saying y'all owe family expectation 12,000, 10,000. Like, what is like the typical conversation?
Well, I could start. Well, one of the things that I let them know about, because a lot of kids, they know where they want to go. Some of them don't. And then when they get accepted, they're like, oh, I got to pay my enrollment fee right now, because they're going to take away my slot. And I always encourage students and parents not to pay that enrollment fee just yet until you get the financial aid award letter. If you do not have that letter, like, don't pay that fee, because most of those fees are non-refundable. Now that we've had the pandemic, during the pandemic, they have been refunding them, but prior to the pandemic, and probably after the pandemic, it's going to go back to, you're not going to be able to get your money back, not even half of it. And so I just have a conversation with them once the FAFSA is done, and I say, well, this is what they're saying. Like, this number means how much money you are able to contribute to your child's education for this school year. And so this is them controlling how much money the school can provide to you from the federal government, whether that's through loans or grants. Now, the scholarships will come through merit based off of your scholar's grade point average and or SAT scores.
Mhm.
And so I'll just have a conversation with them like that. And then I'll show them like a sample financial aid letter. Like, this is what a sample one would look like with your EFC. And, this is not going to actually be it, but this is what it looked like. And then I'll do the math of, this is what your child can get. You can get DC tag, that'll knock off, this amount of money. You can get DC cap, that'll knock off this amount of money. That's if, the student gets it. But if not, they need to make up the difference by applying to some scholarships. And then I always encourage students to do local scholarships. And a lot of them are like, well, I'm doing the Coca-Cola, I'm doing the Gates. That is all fine and dandy. I've had students that have won that. It's just, you're competing with a lot of people.
Mhm.
And if you do the smaller ones, you're more likely to get them and get a full ride based off of that.
Okay.
For me, I think the biggest word that we can take away from this whole entire thing is scholarships. Like, we've said it more than once, and it's real. Like, you need to apply for scholarships. But just like how Ms. Jackson mentioned, conversation that I've had as well too, is just letting the parent know, like, are you financially prepared to do this? Like, granted, there are other programs out there, but again, making sure that you apply to scholarships, even the scholarships that have these essays. Like, a lot of students do not want to write essays, but we have to get out of that mentality. Like, if you're going to college, you're going to have to write essays regardless. So why not just start now with
Mhm.
writing an essay to get some money? So that way that's less money that your parents have to come out of pocket for as well.
All right, so let's talk because Ms. Jackson mentioned like SAT scores and GPA. Let's talk GPA guaranteed I could go to college. Let's talk GPA. You could go to college, but you might need an opportunity school. And for those who don't know what I consider opportunity schools are typically usually either your local community colleges or smaller institutions who will either put you in like a summer bridge program or some HBCUs who just have this mindset of we can build you up, right? Which are usually like the smaller schools in the South, or with
Mhm.
lower enrollment, you'll usually get that opportunity. But let's talk GPAs for the students that will listen to this, or the parents that will listen. Like, where should your child be for like quote unquote purposes of this conversation?
Yeah.
So I'll start. And I'll say that today I actually had a student come up to me who had a GPA of a 0.93. And they were just determined. Like they was like, I'm going to college. Like I don't care what no one says, I'm going to college. And they started naming schools that they wanted to go to. One was John Hopkins, one was St. John's. I want to say the other one was like A&T. But at that particular point, I had to have a conversation with the student. Like, you can go to college, but you have to start at a community college. Like, you can't start off with this 0.93%, 0.93 cumulative GPA and think that you're going to be able to get in these particular schools. And he was like, well, Ms. Tunstell, I'm working really hard now. My GPA is up here. Well, I understand that as of now, but your cumulative one is the one that most of them actually look like. His SAT scores, they actually just took the SAT the other day, but he did not take it his junior year. So this is going to be the first SAT score that we're going to look at. So hopefully this shows something. He does have potential, but just having, like Ms. Jackson mentioned, those tough conversations with students. Like, yes, you can go, but let's see how you can get to the bigger school by starting off a little bit smaller at first, and then make your way to where you want to go. And it's okay. Sometimes we all are not able to go straight to the bigger schools or straight to school right away. Like we have a different pathway, but it's not to say that you're not going to end up the way that you want towards the end or reach your end goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes, I would have to agree. I had a student similar. Their GPA was a 1.3 though, so it was a little high. But I had a similar conversation today. We had on-site admissions with Johnson C. Smith University today, and the student was like, so I don't get a golden ticket. And he's like, well, you might have to build on your GPA. And he's like, Miss Jackson, my GPA is about to go up. Like, what I got to do? I said, well, one, you should probably look into dual enrollment courses. However, those dual enrollment courses are not going to push your GPA up like dramatically. It's just not. You're not going to get to 2.0. I said, it's just not going to happen. And I said, and the thing is, you're such a bright student. You're smart. You know why your GPA is low. It's just, you're going to have to go the community college route. And I said, and you know what, community college is probably the best place for you in terms of a fresh start. And so I was just, encouraging him that way. And I'm like, that way you can continue to work and things like that. And, he had a little bit of an attitude, and then he started to come around a little bit, but that's just what it is. That's a hard conversation to have. That's a big pill to swallow when you have it with those children. But I would rather them not waste their time than
Mm-hmm.
to like be disappointed and crying that they did not get accepted somewhere. And so one of the things I pride myself on, like I tell the students my story. I went to Summer Bridge. I had a Summer Bridge program that I had to go to through Hampton. And that was because my SAT scores were low. And a lot of times, like you were saying, that they use that as like, let me help build you up. So a lot of times it's hit or miss. These colleges are taking a risk by putting you through Summer Bridge. They might know that, oh, their test scores are high, but their GPA is low. So that's telling me maybe they're just not paying attention in school, but
Mm-hmm.
they're extremely smart, or their SAT scores are low and their GPA is high. They're smart, but the test does not reflect their academic ability. And so for my case, that's what it was. The SAT did not reflect my academic ability. I took the two courses. I passed it with a B, both of the courses with a B. And then next thing I knew, I could have graduated a semester early because I took those two classes. And it was very helpful for me because that gave me the chance to build relationships with people before the whole senior or freshman class, excuse me, came onto the campus. I got to learn the campus. I knew the ins and outs of it. Like it was so many benefits of it to the point where kids were like, "Oh, I wish we were in pre-college or summer bridge," because everybody already had a bond because we started in the summertime beforehand. And so, I mean, I highly encourage pre-college and summer bridge programs. One of the things that I really, really like about Morgan State as well as Johnson C. Smith, and I'm not giving a promo for them or anything because you know I always rep the illustrious Hampton University. Um, but I like that they have alternative admissions options, and
Mhm.
that is basically if your GPA is not where it should be for the traditional route of acceptance, then look, you got to do this pre-college program or the summer bridge program, or you need to take the community college route. Any school in Maryland for Morgan State, any community college in Maryland, you can attend there and you'll still be considered a Morgan State student. Like you'll have an ID and everything. You can still go on the campus, things like that.
Oh, that's what's
And
up.
then when you do well your first year or first 2 years in community college, then you can go and live on campus and like be a full-time student over there. So like I really appreciate those types of programs because not only am I a product of it, but it can work. It can work if students believe in themselves and the parents are very supportive in that initiative.
Mhm. I just wanted to say, regardless of whether that's something they have to do, when I think back on it, I kind of wish I would have went that route because it's much cheaper, right? Like, because we all know, depending on your major, like if you're not doing like something high like tech or science or engineering, you're not really taking any courses that would determine whether or not you can graduate in the 4 years, right? So community college, you talking about $300, $400 a credit hour versus seven, eight, or $900 a credit hour. So, for those who don't know about college or you first generation or you're a parent listening, you didn't go, most classes are 3 credits. So 3 times 300 or 3 times 900, it's a big difference. So that's another realistic conversation that you have with your child, especially if their fear is, I don't want to have student loans. Well, then you could pay out of pocket to go to community service route. I mean, community college route, and then graduate yourself to the 4 year institution and possibly on scholarship because you did what you need to do on that level. So you're using a totally different GPA, right? Because I think about like, man, I probably could have worked and paid that off and then just did my last 2 years somewhere, right? Like, granted, I wouldn't have had like the freshman experience because I'm not going to downplay that. Like, that was everything. Like, just being young and dumb and being free for the first time. Like, yeah, it's just an experience that you just had, right? And everybody remembers their freshman year of college. But when you think about the financial side of it, it just depends on what you value more when it comes to that. So I definitely don't want like people to feel like, oh, community college is not it. No, it definitely is it, especially if you are more into the financial side of how you obtain your 4 year degree. Um, any tips or last just information that you want to give to a student that is thinking about college or a high school student that knows they want to go to college and parents of those students?
I'll go. Research, as Ms. Jackson said, and scholarships. Like I can't stress that enough. Like
Mm-hmm.
we say it, if you are given a scholarship, look at it, see if you meet the requirements, and write the essay. Just do the
Write
essay.
the damn essay.
That's
Write the essay. I've had so many students pass up, and a lot of times they pass up free money because they do not want to write an essay. And I wonder how many students actually do submit the essay. Like you could be the one student who actually applies and writes the essay and gets the scholarship. So
Mhm.
that would be me. That would be my advice.
I would say make sure that your scholar is taking personality assessments every year and career assessments almost every year because it's always changing. I mean, even as adults, I encourage adults to take a personality assessment and a career assessment because sometimes we might lose our passion in what we want to do.
Mhm.
And that also helps you have some type of foundation of what you would like to do. Like they couldn't tell me nothing. I said I was going to be a forensic scientist, and I love watching shows on drugs and killers and getting in the mind of killers and things like that. And I majored in biology because I loved biology in high school. And high school biology was completely different from college biology. Okay. I'm talking about I had to drop that course, and that was a major course. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? I still want to be in forensics. And they're like, well, you could do forensic psychology. You could get in the killer's mind. And I'm like, oh, cool, bet. And so I ended up majoring in psychology, but then I ended up in education, still doing counseling work. But I say all that to say, as long as they learn kind of what their interests are, it'll help shape them in their research, and not only research for the college, but research for different scholarships that are tailored to them, so that it'll be a little bit easier for them to obtain some money. And like staying on top of parents too. I mean, sometimes parents, I know we get tired. I'm not a parent, so I don't know why I just said the pronoun we, but I know sometimes y'all get tired, and y'all say we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it, and then it's like, okay, so you haven't filed your taxes since 2018, so we gotta wait on your parent to file the taxes so that you can get information about FAFSA, like that, like they got to do back taxes. It's like a lot. There sometimes the parents are hindering students as well, and then there's parents that don't want to release the information. They don't want to release social security numbers. They think the government is after them and things like that. And I'm like, ma'am, this is the most securest website that they have. Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
So just making sure that students are getting to know who they are, learning their learning styles, learning what they like, what they don't like, and also making sure that parents are on top of it as well for when it comes to the financial aid piece.
All right. So my little tidbit for the end is parents get on a good foot. This is a dual partnership. It is not just on your child. You have a role in this, whether you like it or not. Even if you don't agree to sign a piece of paper, they need your information to get what they need. So let's make sure we get on our stuff when they get to 10th, 11th, 12th grade. Let's get our taxes done on time. Let's make sure all that stuff is done, because they will miss out on funds because they haven't applied on time. Secondly, follow Miss Jackson, the culture you. Hit her up. She can guide your family. She set up a consultation call. She can work with you independently. She is in the DMV area, so I'm not sure if any out of state listeners. She probably could steer you in the right direction
Hmm.
somewhat, but she may not know all of the resources in your area. But she can definitely put you in the right direction. For all my other people, Miss Tunstell, she coming with her stuff. I'm just gonna speak it into existence. I don't know where it's at yet, but it's coming.
I see it.
Thank
Yeah, grab it, grabbing it. No, all seriousness, no. Like this is so important, and be on your school counselor. Like, don't not know them. Do
Yes.
not know them. Do not go to their office. Do not wait till 12th grade to try to build a relationship.
Hmm.
There's 20 other kids who've been in there since ninth grade who weren't supposed to be, that are in front of you.
you. Right.
So make sure you know the players in your building who can get you what you need. This is it's a race, and you at the back if you don't know these things. So I say all that to say we are done, because we done giving out free info, because nothing is free. Okay.
We got Navient loans. Okay.
Okay. It's like, no, no, all jokes aside, no, but seriously, I hope you guys got what you needed from this. I'm super grateful for Miss Jackson. Miss Tunstall, thank you for donating your time to help students and parents just get some good information. And on that note, we up out of here. All right.